Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Live Free Now show, bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. I'm your host, John Bush. Today, we have a wonderful program lined up for you. We are going to be joined by cybersecurity expert Glen Meder. He is going to be presenting a free webinar that I strongly encourage you register for, where he'll be breaking down some of the more prominent threats to your privacy. And as we'll learn from this interview, it's actually a multi-pronged, multifaceted approach to tracking, tracing, surveilling, analyzing just about everything they can about you. A lot of people just go along with it and don't know that there's proactive steps we can all take in order to protect our privacy. Because at the end of the day, there's that old adage, and we'll talk to Glenn about this one, where it's like, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you got nothing to worry about. But unfortunately, if you're watching this transmission here, you are somebody that values freedom. Well, not unfortunately about that, but unfortunately, we exist in a pretty crazy world where there are governments and mega corporations that are very threatened by the likes of you and I, people that recognize their inherent sovereignty, and they are methodically keeping tabs on us. And as we've seen on numerous occasions, the censorship, the surveillance is not evenly distributed amongst the public. Yes, people are targeted. There's dossiers and all sorts of stuff. So we're going to talk about all that and more. I want to thank you for joining us on YouTube, on Facebook, especially if you're tuned in to Odyssey. We'll talk about, with Glenn, some of the platforms out there, some alternatives to big tech that aren't soaking up all of your data. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our good friend, Mr. Glen Meder. How are you, Glenn?
Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time. And of course, there is a webinar taking place August 25th. That's a Thursday, August 25th at 7 p.m. Central. Maybe before we get into some of the Q&A I have for you, you can share what people can expect if they register for that webinar.
Yeah, the webinar is an educational class. So we're going to teach you about, why you should care about privacy. Some important steps that you can take to get private right now. And then we're going to talk about, how to think about privacy. I think that's one of the most important things. You need to kind of change how you think about privacy and, the number one obstacle that people have. And so we're going to pack a lot into an hour. And then what I'll do at the end is I'll do live Q&A. And that's actually the best part of the class. You just ask whatever you want to ask, and I'll answer it. So
right on. They say about economics, it's the dismal science. A lot of this tech stuff and this privacy stuff is over a lot of people's heads and pretty overwhelming, but it's critically important that we do protect our privacy. We do have a right to privacy in most instances. So maybe you could start by sharing with the audience how you got into this whole world of cybersecurity and why it's important to you.
Yeah, so well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I love privacy because I love freedom. And actually, I've really kind of discovered that in the past couple of years. I mean, I've always had this, freedom has always been a strong core value of mine. But the past couple of years have really kind of highlighted that. That is my core value is freedom. And, privacy is required for freedom. And we live in a world where power seekers always want more power, and that's always been the way it has been. That's the way it is now, and that's the way it always will be. And our job is to protect our rights from those people that want to gain power over us. And really, that was my main motivation. But it's also, I have a newsletter that I've been publishing for 12 years, and I was teaching people how to be private online, and people really responded to that. People really want to become private, but then they kind of dive into it. They get all excited. They dive into it, and then they just get overwhelmed. It's so overwhelming that people just say, "Oh, screw it," and they just throw up their hands and give up. And so, that's something that we have to address, and we have to do it where we just do it in bite-sized pieces. If we do it in bite-sized pieces and you don't think about the big picture, then you can get through the steps, and you can actually take some really big steps within a couple months even of actually getting quite a bit of privacy. And then there's the whole other side of things, which is the hackers and the scammers. And hackers and scammers, hackers are the ones that do computer-based attacks, where scammers are, they get you on the phone and they talk to you, but they work together. They're a team, and you've got to protect yourself against hackers and scammers. And so we go into that a lot too.
All right, on what would you say, in your view, are some of the biggest threats that people are facing when it comes to their privacy right now?
Well, I mean, we live in a surveillance state. That's definitely, and I am a believer that countries are and governments are not moral. They will take as much power as you give them, as you allow them to take. And what they're doing now is they're taking this without your knowledge. You have no idea what information they're taking from you, how deep this surveillance goes. But the way I look at it is there's three different threats. There's the hackers and scammers, and then there's big government or big tech, and then there's government. And all three of those are areas that you have to protect yourself against, because all three of those are unethically, they're basically watching everything you do, recording everything you do without your knowledge and without your consent. And it's not right. We have a right to privacy, we have a right to freedom, but we have to stand up for ourselves and take care of that ourselves. So that's really my motivation for this. And it's also that there's a lot of tech solutions out there. There's a lot of YouTube channels and all of that stuff, but they're not really geared for the average person typically. So we try to make it simple for people, for the average everyday person to understand. That's my goal, is how to make it accessible to the average person.
Yeah, that's an art form, actually, because a lot of people in this space, they just completely talk over everyone's head, and there's not a lot of value to get out of that. So I guess in the webinar that's coming up, people can expect to hear the important stuff they need to know about privacy, along with some tips and secrets and solutions. And it'll be in a really accessible, simple way to understand, with some concrete action items, which is, it's all about action and taking solutions, proactive steps to change the game for folks.
Exactly. Yep.
You say without consent, but don't a bunch of the terms of service and stuff, they, like on apps and on social media, they just lay it out like, hey, we're going to be snooping on you and everything that you say?
Yeah, but they make those 900 pages long, and I mean, who reads those? You got to be a lawyer to read those. I mean, there's no respect there for our privacy. Obviously, thieves and hackers, they're not going to abide by your rights to privacy. But even Google, those companies, what we've learned from Google and the other big tech companies, Amazon and all of them, is they will lie. They lie all the time, and they don't care about being sued, because if they get sued, it doesn't matter, because first of all, they have an army of lawyers, and then they're going to fight it tooth and nail. But even if they have to pay billions of dollars, they're making more money by being deceptive than they lose in lawsuits by far. I mean, they are the most powerful companies ever to have existed because of this data that they collect, and they'll do anything to collect this data. So I have an example if you want to hear it. So Google, they introduced the Nest, right? The Nest Smart. I think it started off with a smart thermostat. And so you put this smart thermostat in your house, and it's like you can change the temperature in your house with an app on your phone. Okay, so I guess that appeals to some people. But what they didn't say ever, they didn't say it on the box, they didn't say it on the website, it's not in the privacy policy, it's not even in the schematics, is that they had a hidden microphone in it. And so it was only on a security researcher on Twitter. So he dug into this. He dissected the Nest, and he outed them on Twitter and said, "Hey, what's going on? You have a hidden microphone in the Nest system that you never said anything about." And so the response is, "Oh yeah, sorry, didn't we say that? Sorry about that." I mean, that's all they said. And then what do they do? They come out with, they don't back down. They'll double down because they own the advertising platform. And so they come out with a Nest security system. So now people want, Google cameras and microphones in their house, and they're voluntarily putting it in their house. But these, they, this is our sacred space. We have to have a sacred space where I don't like the term safe space, but I mean, it is. I mean, if in our home, at least we should be private and secure, right? And but they do not honor that at all. They will get every ounce of information out of you that they can.
Yeah, and all those apps and the whole smart home. All right, I remember IBM was early on putting out material about that, about all this interconnectivity and Internet of Things, and now it's Internet of Bodies with wearable devices, and they're pushing for implantable devices. I just saw the World Economic Forum had some article about why it's a good idea to have implants in children, chips in children. I always get a kick out of it, having done this for 2 decades now. Like all the stuff that used to seem like the wackiest conspiracy you could imagine, it's all here in our face. And of course, the pandemic most definitely accelerated all that stuff.
Yeah.
And part of the problem too is that people are opting into it by, I mean, I like to talk a big game about privacy, but I have this device with me at all times. It's an Android. I know there are some, my good friend Ramiro Romani offers the Above phone. There are also some alternatives and options. Let me ask you this. What do you think about the balance? This is the way I see things, because Ramiro and Derek, my cohorts with the Greater Reset and Freedom Cell Network, they're most definitely a lot more serious about the privacy and the tech stuff than I am. I'm aware of it. I have the Proton Mail, right? I use Signal for sensitive information, all this stuff. But I see it as a spectrum between privacy and convenience. And sometimes the more private, the less convenient and simple it is. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree there's this spectrum here?
Absolutely.
And does it have to be one or the other? Do you have some options? Do you teach things so it can be convenient and private at the same time?
Yeah, so it's always a spectrum. Everyone has to make their own mind up of how deep into the rabbit hole you go. And if you want to go, the extreme on one side, if you want to go totally invisible, it's very difficult to go totally invisible from big tech and big government. You can do it, but it could be like a full-time job to do it. I mean, you're going to really take some time at it. But you do want to reduce your footprint, definitely. And you want to get as private as you can, but you have to find your balance point of where you want to be with that. And again, we've got to also look at the 3 different threat models, because there's getting private from big tech and big government, but also you have to get private and secure from the hackers and the scammers. And that's probably one of the biggest threats that you have immediately to yourself and to your money, your assets. There was a family in Lincoln just last month that lost $700,000 to a crypto scam. And I'll go into that if you want me to. The same scam, like a couple months ago, got a guy in Denver for 1.6 million. And it's really sophisticated. I mean, it's scary sophisticated how these things are. You can say, oh, well, I'd never get caught up in that. But unless you know what to look for, so this scam is so sophisticated that it doesn't raise any red flags with you. And so you want me to go into that real quick?
Yeah. Let us know the scam so we can avoid it.
Yeah. So this is called, it's a version of the pig butchering scam, which is, pig butchering means that they fatten up their victim before they go to the slaughter, right? So it's kind of disgusting, even the term. But what happens is, this is usually if you meet somebody on a dating site, or I mean, they will invest a lot of time. The person in Denver met this lady on, I don't know, Match.com or something like that. And they started communicating online for many months. And he thought that they were really hitting it off and that he was kind of thinking they were in love, even though they had never met, but they just connected so well. And so during this process, they started talking about crypto. And he said, yeah, I've dabbled in it, whatever. And so she said, well, you should try out this app, such and such app. And so he goes and tries this app, and he was a software engineer, so he knows his stuff. He looked at the app, very sophisticated app, looks great. So he put, like, I don't know, $5,000 into it. And so on the screen, he says, within like 2 weeks, he's got like $6,500. So he got $1,500 return on his $5,000. So he thought, wow, that's pretty awesome return. That's amazing. So then he pulled his money out and he got his full money. He got $6,500 out. So he thought, okay, this is legit, And so then he invested more money into it. And then he's still communicating with this lady, and they're talking about how awesome it is, and what she's talking about, how much money she's put in and the returns she's getting. And so he puts more and more money in, and eventually he put everything he owns into it, 1.6 million. He took his retirement account, all of that stuff. And on the screen on the app, it says that he's built it up to like $8 million. And he thought he's home free. And then he goes to pull some of it out, can't pull it out. It's all gone. And so that same thing happened to a Lincoln family last month, like the middle of July is when it was reported, and they lost $750,000. But it was different because one of the family members got into this relationship, but then told the other people in the family about it. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like this referral thing, and they all lost their money, everything they owned, $700,000. And that's what I'm saying. It's a very sophisticated scam. There was no red flags that went up because she didn't ask for money. She just told him about an app that she was using. And then, of course, as soon as he tries to get his $1.6 million out or whatever, she disappears, of course. But they know they're going to get so much money that they will invest a lot of time in this. And that's what they mean by, pig butchering. They're going to really fatten you up so that they can take everything that you own. And other scams happen like that, where it's tied into hackers, where let's say they put ransomware on your computer or something like that. And then, sometimes they just tell you, okay, pay us Bitcoin to this address. But sometimes they'll give you a phone number to call. And then once you call the phone number, they've got professional con artists on the other side, and they are very, very good. So you have to be very careful about this.
Wow. It's, like a con man stands for a confidence man. And so the way that they are so effective is they first build that confidence with their victim. And I could see, that's pretty clever. You got to really watch out. I think a general rule of thumb is if a random person starts talking to you about cryptocurrency, then more than likely it's a scam. And, Telegram, we use Telegram very actively. We promoted this interview on Telegram. Chances are folks clicked through the link to watch. You got to be really careful on Telegram because it is just ripe with all sorts of fake accounts and scam accounts. And if you grow a channel or a group to any decent size, soon enough, there's going to be imposters that are pretending to be that channel creator. I got people reaching out all the time. They reach out to me and they're like, hey, how do you like the channel? I'm like, I started the channel. Hello. Sometimes I like to mess with them just to kind of take up their time. But then sure enough, sooner than later, they begin talking about cryptocurrency. Yeah. I'm always like, let me guess, you're going to share about this great investment. And it didn't really occur to me because I'm often like, well, where are they going to take this? Where are they going to go? I know that they're going to bring up cryptocurrency. They always do. And they always talk about some investment opportunity. And so it's probably a similar scam. Yeah, they have some dummy app. So you're saying for that pig slaughter or whatever you call it, scam, they have a fake dummy app that makes it appear as though things are beneficial when in reality, it's just a con. It's just a fake the whole time.
Yeah, man. But the difference is it is a very sophisticated app. I mean, it's like what you would expect out of E-Trade or Schwab or something like that. And I think that's one of the points with these hackers and scammers is that this is organized crime.
Yeah.
Because they'll do this other scam where they call you up and it's the hello grandma scam, where they'll, a kid or apparently their grandchild will call up and say they're in prison and all that stuff. And they will have professional actors. They'll have professional actors act like bondsmen that go out to the home, collect the money, all of that stuff. And they will, I mean, it is very sophisticated. And that's one of the reasons that I say, if you have been scammed, don't feel stupid. A lot of people feel stupid, but don't feel stupid because they are good. You really have to realize that they're good. You just have to learn your lesson and move on. Unfortunately, you're not going to get your money back. So you have to learn how to avoid those things. But yeah.
A good question to ask yourself, the classic adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly.
It's like, how the hell are you creating this type of returns? I mean, that's a greater than 20% return on your money just over and over. Where does that money come from? Where's this new 20% coming from? If it was legit, you're probably ripping somebody else off, somebody else is making a mistake in the markets or whatever. So, a lot of times
crypto is not easy to make money with. I mean, you have to know that. And you hear all these stories about these people making millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of crypto. That's because they got in really early and they rode this wave. But now you get in and it's not easy. And so people, you're exactly right. If it's too good to be true, it is not true.
Yep. You got to take care of that money or you're going to lose it for sure.
Yep.
And that's the thing with crypto. I've shifted the value proposition, even just a couple of years ago, I was pounding on, you can build wealth with crypto as opposed to dollars, right? It's going to likely go up in value, but there's a chance that it could go down. And we just had this big crash and there's all these corrections and bear markets, and it's manipulated by big investors, but it's also manipulated by the government. And then this regulation comes out, this hack happens. Who really knows? Unless you're somebody that's really wealthy, in my view, you probably want to only put a little bit of crypto in. Don't start putting a ton of money. Don't put the kids' college fund. If you have extra money, you're in a good place. You're like, we just sold a house or we sold a business, or I just have a ton of money. I'm not exactly sure what to do with it. Then sure. But for folks that aren't, folks that are on the come up, I encourage people to put their money into a business, invest in themselves and skills and such. Exactly. However, let's go ahead and shift here. I do think that the main value proposition for crypto nowadays is learning to use cryptocurrency for commerce, especially using privacy coins like Monero, because it's inevitable that this central bank digital currency system will be rolled out all across the globe, here in the US especially. And at the end of the day, using these privacy coins, it's probably going to be the only way we can do business with one another online outside of their scope and purview. So let's talk about central bank digital currencies here for a sec. When did you start hearing about this phenomenon? How would you describe them? Why should people be concerned with these CBDCs?
Yeah, I mean, everything that's going on nowadays is leading up to this central bank digital currency. And this is quite honestly, I think, the end of freedom as we know it. This is a terrible thing. And I really hope we can come together and reject this. I think we've got to reject this if we want to have any semblance of freedom, because it's not like, because a lot of people think, okay, well, we're doing a lot of things with like Visa and MasterCard and it's all online anyway. But that's not what we're talking about here. This is something where they have total control of everything. They can it's going to be tied into a reward and punishment system, just like the Chinese social credit system. And you don't know who's making money, who's not making money. They're going to be harder on people that disobey the government. They're going to reward people that are useful I guess useful idiots is the best way I can say it. But I mean, people that are, let's say somebody that's Antifa and they're going to do a riot in a certain city. Those people are going to find they've got extra $2,000 in their bank account. No one else knows this. No one else knows what each person is getting. And it's all based on, algorithms, and they can control this to a very high degree for millions, hundreds of millions of people all across the globe. And they can just set up these rewards and punishment systems. And it's going to be a total change. I would say, they always throw out the date 2030. By 2030, we will not recognize this world. I don't think it'll be, it will be much different, and it'll be, the elites and the lower people, and they will have control over us. I really hope we fight this.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. It's my view that the whole Great Reset stuff, I think more than likely this stuff is going to be rolled out, central bank digital currencies included. Yep. And in my view, and I'd like to get your take, the question would be, what is it going to take in order to stop this in its tracks? And it's my belief that, at least in the US, it would take a mass conservative, make America great. It would take a mass conservative movement. The Democrats, the left, left voters and such, they're just going along to get along. They're in bed with this in large part. They would just say it's more efficient, it's more equitable, it's more just, whatever. But there has been a bit of a resistance movement that grew out of the Trump thing, that grew out of the Q. I mean, I guess before there was the roots in the Ron Paul revolution, and then the Tea Party, kind of constitutional, a little more limited government. It's all co-opted more often than not. Yep. But this whole Make America Great thing, even though I think the Q stuff is total garbage and was likely a psychological operation to make Trump people look crazy and just distract them, it did show that there's a lot of folks that are run-of-the-mill conservative Republican voters that follow Donald Trump that are willing to think outside the box and recognize that there is a conspiracy going on to control people and all the pedophile weird stuff going on. So I think it would take like a mass movement that's backed by a big politician like a Trump or DeSantis in order to really halt it. But even then, they've in large part circumvented the ballot box. They're moving forward administratively. So I'd be curious what you think it would take to actually stop the central bank digital currencies from being rolled out.
I think it's very simple. I think we've got to stop thinking nationally. I think the federal government is absolutely corrupt. They have taken all of these powers that the Constitution doesn't allow them to have. And the solution is to have 20 or 30 DeSantises, or even if we had 10 DeSantises that were actually fighting back for, because the Constitution, which is the foundation of our law, says that if the Constitution doesn't give specific power to the federal government, then that power is reserved to the people and to the states. That's the 10th Amendment. And so a governor could get in and just say, the Department of Education is out. We're not letting them into the state because there is no constitutional authority. And then I would go through every organization and just say where every organization has to prove their constitutional right to exist in order to do anything in this state. So USDA actually really screws farmers, and I think that's a terrible thing. So that should just kick them out. And then all of these other things, and then the states have to fight back. And what I'm talking about is they would be the ones following the law. The federal government is not following the law. And what I don't like is that everyone always leaves it up to the courts. Oh, we'll have, so-and-so, the courts will overturn this and whatever. Well, courts is one way to do it, but you have to have a strong leader. And that's one of the things that I've been disappointed with the red states is, the lockdowns weren't as bad in the red states, but many of those governors didn't fight for local businesses. They didn't fight for people's rights, freedoms, anything like that. We need a governor in every state that will fight for our individual rights and the Constitution. And that's where it has to be, I think.
Well, I'm with you. I mean, that would be ideal to have some politicians doing the right thing or to leverage the state government against the federal government or whatever. But I mean, ultimately, I don't think we have any control over whether or not that happens. So we got to take proactive steps in our own life to insulate it. And like, man, I mean, DeSantis is a good example. He definitely has pushed back against the COVID regime in many ways. And like, they're even preventing the youth from getting vaccinated in Florida, apparently. And he's throwing all sorts of verbal haymakers at his press conferences against the COVID regime, which is great. But, I mean, ultimately, we can't wait around for the government to do the right thing or a state government to do the right thing. We've got to take steps in our own lives, which is why teaching people about cryptocurrency, teaching people about privacy, teaching people how to create more freedom in their lives, I think is super important. And I appreciate how you're doing that on the privacy front. So for the folks that are just joining us, we are joined by Glen Meder. He is the guy behind the Privacy Action Plan. He's hosting a free webinar Thursday, August 25th at 7 p.m. Central. That's Thursday, August 25th, 7 p.m. Central. And I'm dropping the links there. You can see it in the show notes as well. I'll share it there in the comments as well. It's absolutely free to attend. He's going to be breaking down all sorts of the problems that we're facing, but focusing on solutions. And as he shared before at the beginning of the interview, there'll be a giant section for Q&A. So you'll be able to have your privacy questions asked and answered in a really methodical way. So definitely check that out. Again, it's absolutely free to attend. So what are some things that people can do in order to prepare for the potential that these central bank digital currencies get rolled out? How can they insulate themselves? What can they do now to anticipate this and not be completely consumed by it?
Well, I believe that it's very important to get your money out of the system. I mean, I don't think they're rolling it out. One of the reasons they're not rolling it out is because they have to put all of the pieces in place that will allow them to totally lock down. We saw that thing happen in Canada recently, and I think that was reversed very quickly because Trudeau let the cat out of the bag too early. And the elites were kind of pissed off that he let it out of the bag too early and showed people what's coming. But that needs to be a big wake-up call for everybody that this is what they're going to do. They're going to shut down your bank accounts. They're going to freeze you out. They're going to grab your assets, whatever. So I believe that it's important to, gold and silver and privacy coins. I don't believe in, I'm not a huge fan of crypto. I'm not a huge fan of Bitcoin or anything that is not privacy oriented, because I think they lost sight of the original purpose of crypto. And we have to maintain our privacy. Privacy is our right. We can't let them convince us that, this is only for money launderers and criminals. No, privacy is our right. And so, Monero, Pirate Chain, and I know there's another one coming up, Dero, that I'm interested in. We'll see if that goes anywhere or not. Monero is definitely the big one that I think is very important, and I recommend the Cake Wallet. I think the Cake Wallet is super easy to use. So basically, what people do is just download, go to the Apple Store or Android, and download the Cake Wallet, and then you can set up a Monero wallet, and it's that easy. Now, I will say, let me just talk about Apple for a minute, because most people don't realize this, but everyone thinks, because Apple always talks about themselves as being privacy centric, right? But they've got a closed operating system, so we have no idea what actually goes on the iPhone or any of the Mac stuff. But here's something that we do know. So Apple gives developers the ability to take screenshots of your phone anytime that they want to. So think about that. And you have no idea, by the way, that this is happening. So if you think about this and think about, okay, I'm going to download the Cake Wallet and I look at the secret key, did a developer just take a snapshot of your screen when you were looking at that secret key? Because if they did, then they can take everything that you own. So I guess I guess that's an Apple thing, but it's also, you have to really be careful loading apps onto your computer, onto your phone, because consider them all malware. They have tremendous power over your phone, every app that you have. So anyway, with the cryptocurrency, I do believe it's important to have a de-Googled phone, whether it's a Calyx system or it's the above phone, which uses Graphene OS. A de-Googled phone, I think, is very important. I think it's very important to use Linux. I don't always recommend Linux because it depends on people's ability. I mean, Pop! OS is a version of Linux, which I really love, and it's very simple to use. But it's not for everybody. There's a lot of people that just aren't capable of doing that. I think it's pretty darn good though, and for most people, I think Pop! OS and the company that makes those systems is System 76 computers. I think those are excellent computers, and so anyway, yeah. I don't know if I kind of went off on some tangents there, but.
No, that's all right. It's a lot to discuss on this front. When it comes to Linux too, one thing, a good strategy that I like to employ is I use a lot of the mainstream stuff for business and just for speed and execution and for convenience, right?
Yeah.
But then I also use Proton Mail or Signal or other applications for things that I feel I want to be more private, right? So it doesn't have to be an all or none thing, or it could be an all or none thing, but it can be like a hybrid of this, that, and the other. Because my only experience with Linux was back when I used to do some cryptocurrency mining several years ago, and it's a pain in the butt in my view. I mean, I know there's a graphical user interface that makes it appear kind of like Windows and stuff, but if you ever have to mess with command line, it's hard. But the cool thing, the thing to recognize too is like, if there's a will, there's a way. If you really want to learn it, you can learn it. And the thing to do is to find folks like Glenn that are willing to teach and train that stuff and get the help there, because there's a lot of people that are willing to help. You just have to believe in yourself and your ability to learn it. Let me ask you this. Do you get a lot of people that use your services or the privacy action plan that are older? Because I understand, I grew up with technology. Actually, I don't know how old I was, maybe like 8 or 10 or so when we got our first little Apple computer. My kids most definitely grew up with it their entire lives. And I just told my kids the other day, because they have, an email address, right? I'm like, let's make sure we change that email address completely and like zap the phone or the tablet completely every year or two, so you don't have an entire profile on your life from birth to death, Yep. So let's hope they don't get started off like I've been lately, just where Google knows all sorts of stuff. The thing too with Google is like, the searches are just a lot better. Unless you're searching something about truth or conspiracy. I use DuckDuckGo primarily, but every once in a while I will be like, I'm not very satisfied with these search results. Let me go see if I can find what I want in Google. Sure enough, Google returns better stuff. But again, it's that all, it doesn't have to be all or none, whatever. So maybe I'm not the poster boy for privacy, I guess. But do you find... That's right. Do you find that older generations, older folk that didn't grow up with computers, maybe some of these services that you're offering and how to avoid the scams and stuff might be more beneficial? Because there's some folks that are uncomfortable with the technology, which makes them more susceptible to all three of those vector points.
Yeah, I would say most of the people in the privacy action plan are older, definitely. I think they're more cognizant and maybe a little bit more skeptical of what's going on, and the younger kids just don't even question it. They just they see the benefits, they see the ease, and it's harder to get them convinced. Although I have, once they listen and if they hear it and they hear how despicable these big tech companies are, and if they get a little bit of experience with studying governments and how they always get corrupt and take your freedoms away and all that stuff, kids do get in. I say kids, kids too, but definitely someone in their 20s or something can also get into this, but they're probably more captivated by the technology than the older people are. So yeah, it's primarily older people. Yeah.
Right on. Earlier you mentioned Bitcoin. Say you're not a fan of Bitcoin. Can you share with the audience what that's all about? Because a lot of people aren't familiar with the transparent nature of the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yeah. So Bitcoin, the original, if you read the original white paper of Bitcoin, it was they wanted to add in the privacy functionality to it, and that was a big part of what they wanted to do. I mean, they wanted to keep the blockchain transparent, but at the same time, they wanted to add some privacy into it, which never got added in. Bitcoin is an open book. It's worse than cash because every single transaction that you do can be tracked back to you by anyone. And there's a there's a YouTube channel called CoffeeZilla, and just one guy goes and looks at these people, these influencers on Twitter that are scamming people, and these people will say, oh well, I'm doing this for the love of my community and all that stuff, I'm not taking any profit. And then he goes in and shows exactly how much profit they are taking and exactly what they're doing, what wallet they're transferring it through, everything. Anyone can see all that. And they have, the central banks and the governments they hire big companies to track all of this. They know everything that everybody does, except for privacy coins. And Monero and Pirate Chain and these other ones are designed from the ground up to be private. And so they work the same way as Bitcoin and these other things. And the key with cryptocurrency is it's peer-to-peer transactions without a middleman. And I mean, that's the beauty of it. You don't have to have all these banks and all of these, all of these things in between you and whoever you want to transact with. It's a beautiful system, but the people in power obviously don't like it, and they hate the privacy coins because they want to track everything that you do. But if you use Monero and privacy coins, they can't. And I think it's very important that we do that.
Right on. I'm hearing there's like a crackle coming through your audio, so maybe you could reset your mic or unplug and plug back in. And I'm going to give you a sec there to do that. If you're just joining us, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking with Glen Meder. He is with the Privacy Action Plan. He is a privacy cybersecurity expert. He consults with individuals, also large businesses, on how to secure their online footprint, whether it's security from the government, the NSA, and all those snoops, or from big tech, which is constantly snooping. Of course, a lot of the services that they provide in social media are free. And so you got to ask yourself, as a business, as a corporation, most of them are publicly traded corporations, what is their business model? Where, well, you are the product and your data is the product. So there's other apps, there's certain ways to go around that, or there's certain apps that you can just abandon altogether. And then, of course, something that I think is going to be really valuable with this upcoming webinar is learning how to protect yourself from hackers and scammers, because they are definitely out there and they are very sophisticated. So Glenn has spent a significant amount of time studying the trade of hacking and scamming, so he can help you to know what to look out for and know how to protect yourself and not make yourself vulnerable or a target from these hackers and scammers. And again, Glenn will be hosting a free webinar Thursday, August 25th, coming up in just 2 days, Thursday, August 25th at 7 p.m. You can register for free. I've been dropping the link there in the chat, and I hope that you will check that out. But let's go and bring Mr. Glenn back. So hopefully that fixed it. Oh, no, now you're muted there.
So is this better?
Go ahead.
Is this better? Can you hear me?
I think so. Yeah, it was like a weird little crackle interference, but I think it's better now.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, so we talked a bit about big tech. We talked a bit about some of these scams. What are some of the ways that the government is snooping on folks? I know Edward Snowden, of course, exposed everything with Prism and stuff, but what are some things that folks may not be aware of that the government has access to?
Yeah, well, even back in 2013 with Edward Snowden, he said they could turn on your camera anytime that they want to and watch you without your knowledge. They have, Edward Snowden revealed all this stuff. It was illegal, absolutely illegal, what the government is doing, and they have just doubled down, and they just keep doing it. No one has been held accountable. So I think it is important that we that we protect ourselves there. Now, I think one thing that you don't necessarily know, or most people don't know, is all of these tools that the NSA developed to hack us. The NSA itself was hacked. So after Edward Snowden revealed all this stuff, the NSA was hacked and all those tools were stolen. So, pretty much all of the foreign governments and big hacking companies have all of those tools that they can use on us. Plus, they've developed a lot more tools that they can hack us and watch us and all of that stuff. So I think it's important that we take the steps that we need to get private and secure. Definitely.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. They can't even keep their own technology secure. How are we going to expect them to keep our data secure? I got this little cool. There's like a little slide that goes over the camera. You see?
Yeah.
I think this is a little simple tool that will enable, I can still use it. I don't have to use a sticker and it constantly leaves little smudges or whatnot. But anytime I want to use the front camera, I can do that, or you just slide it over.
Yep.
Is that something that can be done on the phone, and the webcam can be turned on as well?
Yep. Yeah.
Man.
And not only the government, I mean, hackers do this. There's, if you go into the dark web, there's places where hackers just hack into people's webcams and then they put them up on the web for live streaming. You don't know that you're being watched, and they put it up for anyone to watch. And so there's places on the web that you can go that you can just look at all these different cameras all over the place that are live streaming, and the people don't know that they're live streaming. I mean, it's disgusting, and people have no respect for other people's privacy or but it's up to us to take care of that and protect ourselves against that.
Yeah, we need to take personal responsibility
Yeah.
for preventing that kind of stuff from happening. Let's talk about some apps. What is your preferred encrypted email platform?
So there's some good apps. There's Tutnota is really good, and they're probably the cheapest. It's a terrible name, and I've talked to them about, you guys have to change your name. So it's Tutano. I can't even say it. Tutnota. I can't even spell it off the top of my head. Tutnota.com. And then there's Proton Mail. I'm looking into some rumors that Proton Mail is canceling people. I've heard that Tutnota or Proton Mail is canceling some accounts of people that, they're kind of jumping on the cancellation bandwagon. And I want to see if those rumors are true before I stop recommending them. But then there's Private Mail. Private Mail is very good too. So you've got some good services there. So yeah.
All right. And then what about encrypted messaging, like an app for the phone?
Yeah, I mean, Signal is kind of combines privacy with a lot of people are using it. So it's fairly easy to use. I don't like that you have to use your phone number, but the security researchers that I follow, they all say Signal is good and secure, and I trust those reviews. I also use Session, but I think Session's having some problems right now. My Session's not working, and I don't really understand. I haven't really looked into it, but Session is good if it's working, and hopefully it is still supported. And then you can use like Briar, but Briar is only Android phone, so that's kind of a pain. So I think Signal is kind of where it's at right now.
Right on. Cool. Okay, great. So tell us once again, for the folks that are registering for the free webinar, again, you can register in the links. I'll drop them once again there in the chat on Odyssey, YouTube, and Facebook. But what can people expect if they register for this free webinar that's coming up Thursday, August 25th at 7 o'clock? What can they expect from you?
Yeah, so it's going to be a packed hour. We're going to go through why you should care about privacy, what you can do. We're going to go through 5 steps that you can take right now to get private and secure. And then we're going to talk about how to think about privacy, because you've got to change your thought pattern as it pertains to big tech, government, and scammers and hackers. And then we will talk about, the number one obstacle and next steps that you can take. And then we'll do Q&A, live Q&A. So, and like I said, that's always, people always love the Q&A, and I like it too, because it's a chance to really get interactive with people and, try to drill down to whatever questions are right on their mind right now.
Excellent. Yeah, people really appreciate that interactive bit. So
Yeah.
if you have any questions about a particular app or a particular problem you've run into, or just any advice regarding privacy, whether it's cell phone, computer, messaging, email, money, avoiding scams, maybe somebody made you an offer and you're like, I don't know about this. You can run it by Mr. Meder, and he'll definitely shoot you straight, hopefully save you some money and save you some trouble. So again, that's taking place Thursday, August 25th at 7 p.m. You can register for free. The link to sign up is in the show notes, and I've also dropped it there in the chat. All right, well, we appreciate you joining us there, Mr. Glenn.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, John.
All right, take care. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a wild world. The whole Big Brother thing from 1984 couldn't be more real. It's getting worse and worse by the day. But thankfully, there's a movement of free people that recognize the importance of their privacy and are using and developing all sorts of applications and strategies in order to maintain their privacy, digital privacy, privacy in the physical world as well. And again, you can register for the free webinar that Mr. Glenn is hosting. He's going to break down all about privacy, why it's important, privacy mindset, also share some tips of the trade for you. And on top of that, he'll be taking your questions. That's all taking place Thursday, August 25th, Thursday, August 25th at 7 p.m. I hope you sign up and enjoy that webinar. Without further ado, this is John Bush with the Live Free Now podcast. Peace and freedom. I'm out.